Today I'm going to focus on mainly on what buttons do while in Excel. Vince, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So basically, what the entire screen is called workspace. You can tell it's your workspace by if you have your name up in the upper right hand corner here. Obviously, mine says Jaeger Kyle. Your guys's will say your guys' names, hopefully. If it doesn't have something there, that is okay. It's not super important, but it can be helpful down the road. So then what this area of the screen is called the ribbon. Now this will hold pretty much everything and everything that you would ever want / need in here. So insert, you'll have the graphs and pivot points and stuff that you guys probably don't need, but just in case you do need, they would be in here. So let's say we had just a simple graph here, or a simple numbers here. We can pick different types of graphs based on whatever we want. And then that just inserts it so that way we can start moving it around and stuff. We can go over more of that in detail later. The page layout, this is, believe it or not, the page layout. You can set up how it's going to be orientated. This mainly has to do with when you print it. It's not super important otherwise. Formulas, there will be plenty of formulas that we might be able to use. Most of this stuff is advanced, like all the people in the offices over here. They're just like, Kyle, how do you do that? How do you do this? But we'll go over that a little bit. Then we have data. You guys probably, again, won't be using this, but it's nice to know that it's in here. This is if you had a file that had a whole bunch of data in it, and you wanted to import it into Excel, you could do it with these resources here. Other than that, I have not used a single one of these. The one that I looked at is the what if analysis, which again we can go over later, but a quick rundown is that you can change one specific cell without changing the entire loadout of this. Let's see, then we can go over to review. This is, let's say that if I would send Vincent an Excel spreadsheet and he looked it over and he's just like, well, this 6 should really be an 8, then he could go in here and create a new comment, and then I would get that. And again, I'll go over that later. And I clicked the wrong one, delete comment. Then we have view. It's very similar to page layout, but there is some more uses within this. It can show you how it's going to print. It can do a whole bunch of other things with how you view it. And then this button, the file button, brings up all the other things that I will show you. This is apparently called the backstage view, is what this screen is called. I've never called it that, but just in case somebody says that, Darwin might be just like, yeah, go to the backstage view, and then you'll be like, what the hell is that? But yeah, okay, so this took me figuring it out, and I am assuming it will be useful to you guys. If ever your ribbon goes away, you can double click on the tabs up here to make it either collapse or uncollapse. Otherwise, if it is collapsed, then you can click on it and then it shows up for a little bit, but once I click over here, it disappears. So you can double click on those tabs to make them stay out. That's the way I prefer it, and that's the way I'm going to be teaching it. And within all these little tabs, so if I ever say like go to the insert tab and then the charts panel, the charts panel is this. They are all labeled down here at the bottom of the ribbon. So if I say formulas and then function library, that would be in this broad section here. And then another helpful tool is, since all of us will be using Excel differently, um, it's very helpful for this what's it called? Quick access tool. That's all these buttons that you probably have up here in the upper left-hand corner. I have it set to default where it should be a save button, an undo button, and then a redo button. You can add to this ribbon. So let's say for whatever reason you'll be doing a whole lot of printing for whatever reason that day. You can go to quick print, which is literally just clicks a button and then it sends it to whatever your default printer is. You can add it to the list. See, there's the save, undo, redo, and then you can click OK, and now it's up here. So that way, if I would click this, it would automatically just send it right to the printer. And there is a ton of commands you can do with that. You can, if instead of popular commands like I have here, we can go to all commands, and there's 1,000 or so that I won't be going, that if you guys know what tools you guys will be using, if any of them. So I'm going to keep this quick save, and also I'm going to be having the save as function, which I will go over later if you guys don't know the difference between save and save as. And I did it wrong there. I keep doing that where I forget to actually add it over here. Basically, this is all the commands versus the ones that are in the toolbar. So I need to go back down to save as. I need to make sure to add it and then click OK. So now it's popped up here, right next to the quick save, or sorry, to the quick print. As you can obviously see, all the rows are numbered and all the columns are lettered. They go on forever, pretty much. Way more than you will ever need. You will never not run out, or you will never run out of those. And then this section right here is called the formula bar. Anything that you type within a cell will also pop up there. So if I would type in 200, it also pops up here, where you can also edit it, and it will show up down there. Mainly it's used for formulas, hence why it's called the formulas bar, and we will be going over that too, as it is pretty core for learning other things. And then last on our window here is the status bar. Currently, right now, it's at the very bottom of your screen, and right now for me it says edit. For you guys, it probably says ready, depending on what you're doing. It says edit because currently, right now, I'm editing. If I'm just clicked anywhere, it's just ready. There's multiple things you can do with this. Let's say that I had a whole bunch of values here. I'm just typing in random numbers right now. And then you highlighted them all. I'll show how to do that. Down here at the status bar, it shows you just a quick rundown of what those numbers might mean to you. So the average of these numbers is 61.29 or whatever, and then there's 7 numbers there and what the sum would be, and that's all located right there. If you just need to know it really quick, we'll be going over later how to actually output it into another cell, but that is there for you if you need it. And then there's also the zoom function down here, which I should probably keep it like this so that way you guys can actually see what numbers I have here. I need that. You need that? I'm really glad. I'm really glad, Pat. Well, that's there for you. We'll keep it about right there for me. And then another cool thing you can do with the status bar down at the bottom is right click it, and then you get all the things that the status bar can show you. So for example, right now, if I hit caps lock, it doesn't show up on the status bar. But if I make it so that way it does tell me, it will tell me. So now it says caps lock right by the ready down here. But if I touch it again, then it goes away. It's just so that way you can easily see what's going on. You can identify what's going wrong, if anything's going wrong. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Not all of them are used. Some of them I don't know what they are. But yeah, let's see, what else do I got? So next I should probably show you guys what all the different pointers mean. You guys are used to the way my mouse looks right now, and probably are used to the editing tool. But Excel, I'm fairly sure, is the only one that uses this weird looking, I call it a blocky plus sign. And this is just so that way you can click and it will select that cell. And it's also there to show you that you can, if you click and drag, you can select more than one cell. That's what that one does. So let's say I have this one selected. If I go to the very edge of it on any of the sides, you get the 4 arrows. If you click and drag, then it will take that one and push it elsewhere. So if I brought that back here, and then let's say I click and dragged on all of these, and then moved all of them, it moves all of them. Then we have a skinny plus sign, which is if you go to the bottom right hand corner of your selected cell. So if I go right here, it is a lot skinnier. This is a tool, it's called Fill, and I'll be going over probably later today what that does, as it can be very helpful as opposed to typing out everything. The main function of it is so that way you can go click and drag from that skinny plus sign and then fill in all the rest of them. Another neat function is that, let's say that whoa, how did I do that? Okay. If you have a pattern, if you have them selected, and then I would click and drag down, it continues the pattern on in either direction. So if I wanted to go into the negatives, I could go this way. I'll be going over more. It's a lot more useful with functions, which we'll be going over later. Then if you highlight, let's say you want to select everything within column E, you get just a down arrow and it just selects every single value within the E block. And the same goes for rows as well, where you can select that. Now let's say you wanted to select rows 3 through 5. You can't just click twice, it won't let you click both of them. But if you if you click 3 and then hold down Shift and then click 5, it will allow you to click, or it will select all of those ones. If you wanted, let's say 6 and 9, you could hold Control as opposed to Shift to select those ones. And then you can do whatever you need to do to those rows with that. Then you can also change how a cell looks. So like if you go right to the line in between D and E, you can take the cell and switch it to whatever size you may want. You can also right click on something and go to column width. But it's however you would like to do it. And then one thing I did forget to mention earlier is this is where you can have multiple spreadsheets within one Excel file. So these are all within the same file. They're just different tabs of that. If you click the plus, you'll make a new spreadsheet, and it will probably be called Sheet 2 if you're on Sheet 1. And then you can double click on the name to change the name. And you can right click on it and change it to a different color if you want. and there's a whole bunch of other things that we can get in depth on to with that. One thing I should probably tell you that if you guys have been messing around with your own Excel, let's say you want to enter in a string of data along 14 here. You can hit tab as opposed to enter to complete that one, and then it will go one to the right. So now I can go, there I hit enter, and then it went back down here. Let's see. Now let's say that you were working on two different spreadsheets here. So let's say I wanted to go over to test for whatever reason. You could hold down Control on your keyboard and then page up. Okay, or not. Never mind. I thought that would work. Oh, there we go. If you hit page down, it will go to the next one. So without me clicking, I'm able to scroll through all of the different ones that I have. What else do I got here? So let's say I screwed up. So let's say instead of 28,000, I wanted 29,000. You can either hit undo up in the upper left-hand corner, or you can hit Control Z. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So that will go back to that one without having you to click and delete it, and then you can type in whatever you wish to have there. And now if you undo something and you're like, oh crap, I didn't want to actually undo that, you hit redo and then it redoes the typing for you. So let's say I do a string. If I did a string of things like I did within this spreadsheet here, you can click the little arrow next to the undo button, and then it brings up pretty much everything that you've done so far. You can go, and you have to go within steps of doing the undo. So if you wanted to go back to when you typed that 6 back in E7 or whatever, you can go all the way back there and it will undo everything you've done. And then the same goes for redoing, where you can go all the way back. So if you screwed up somewhere along the ways, most assuredly you can go back. Not every single thing you can undo. Sometimes when deleting an entire spreadsheet, like if I were to right click this and delete it, sometimes it will come back and sometimes it won't. So be careful when you're doing destructive work like that. So do you guys know the difference between save and save as?
Nope. Yes.
Okay. So Vince was the only one who said no, right?
Yep.
Okay. So Vince, let's say you have a file saved on your desktop there, and you wanted to move it to someplace else through this. So there's a save. Okay, I didn't want to do that. There's save, just saves it in the same exact location, just the way that it's named, as it was in the file. Save as creates an entirely new file. So let's say you wanted to have a step 1 and then a step 2, and you continued working off of step 1 to make step 2, you could still have both of them without doing anything bad. It's kind of hard to explain over the phone now that I think about it. Did that make somewhat sense?
We'll go over it another time.
Sounds good. I'll make sure I write it down so that way I remember to talk to you about that. So I have to save as this file. I would have to choose a place for it. I'm just going to put it on my desktop. And then it creates a name for it, and I hit save. If I do save as again, and let's say I just did save it, entering data plus a whole bunch of whatever, and save it again, now I have two copies of that same thing. One I could edit and it won't affect the other one. So I have two copies of that. And then what else can I go over? So that's kind of the lowdown on save versus save as. Now, anytime that we would want to do a formula, so let's say that I would want to add up all these numbers right here. Any formula starts with an equal sign. And most of the time you can just enter in either the cell space. So in this case, if I wanted to add, actually let me start. Let's start fresh over here. So let's say I just wanted to add these two numbers up. I could do equals, and then since this one is I9, I could type in I9 and then add I10 to that. And then once you hit enter, it changes over into whatever the correct thing is. If you click back on it and look up at the formula bar, it says I9 plus I10, but it actually does the calculation. I did not mean to do that. Once you hit enter. Now let's say that you wanted to do an entire string of adding up. I don't want to do plus whatever over and over again. So there's actually a function for that, which is just a quick way of doing something. So you could do equal, and then you can do sum. If you type in sum and then hit tab to select it, it creates it for you. That's when you can click to add, click and then drag, and then it will select all of those for you. And then once you hit enter, it calculates out what all of those are. So as you can see up in my formula bar up here, it says E1 through E12. But then once you hit enter, it changes over. Does anybody have questions at all? I'm sorry I'm talking so fast.
Not yet.
All right. So, for me, I just created a quick little example, I suppose, of how to use those functions to our benefit. Functions are probably the main thing within Excel that you would use that you wouldn't use in Word. So for this, we're just calculating a profit. If it costs $120 and then to make it costs $100, we would have a profit of 20, and then in this one it would be 30, so on and so forth. So to calculate that, we could do equals this one minus this one, and then once we hit enter, it comes up with 20. Now we can use that fill that I tried to explain earlier to bring it down to the rest of these. Now the way that the fill cursor works is that it copies the relationship of this cell compared to these two cells and then applies it to this cell with these two cells. So it's looking at B2 minus B3. So when I bring it over to this, it's looking at B2 minus B3, and then so on and so forth if I drag it all the way across. So now all of these should be correct, and then if you look up at the formula bar in the F column, it says F2 minus F3, which is what we want. Now this autofill feature can also be very helpful for other like menial tasks. So let's say I wanted to have a week days of the week up here. So I could start on Monday. If I just hit Monday and then click back on that cell and make sure you have the skinny cross and pull it all the way across, it automatically fills in those days for you. And the same works for months. So if I would to do this, it does that as well. And then there's also a slew of other things that it works for as well. Now, let's say that we had a salary, if I can type correctly, and then we had a person making, that was weird. I don't know what's going on with that cell. There we go. Actually, you know what? I'll cover that at a different time. That's a bit more complicated even for me to explain. I need to learn more about that as well. So since all of these are dollars, we could highlight all of these, and then in the Home tab underneath the number category here, we could choose the dollar sign, and then it converts everything to dollars, so that way if there was cents in there, it would automatically calculate it and then also round to that. The same goes for, let's say we had a 5% overhead. Right now it just says 5 here, but I think it will actually go to 500% because you times by 100 to get percentage. So let's say we wanted to display a 50% raise that day or something. It will automatically change it to 50%. So without me typing anything into D8 here, I'm going to make it so that way it's in a percentage style. Now anything I type in here will be percentage. And the same goes for other things as well. So let's say I make just a large number. It doesn't have any commas in there at all. But if you add the comma style, it will input it in there and kind of put it into a dollar format. Now let's say that you wanted more decimal points. That's what these two buttons up here right next to that was. So this one takes away decimal places while this one adds some, so that way you can see the correct amount if you so wish. So if you ever see these number signs, that means that your number's too big for it to show through how small you have the boxes, so you got to make sure that the box is big enough for it. What else do I got for you guys? Another thing that can be fairly helpful if you aren't understanding formulas is that there's actually just a button for it. So let's say that I wanted to add all of these ones up and display it here in the H column. I could go to formulas and then hit auto sum, and the number's too big, so I got to make it a little bit bigger here. And it will automatically do all of that for you. And as you can see, it just inputs the sum there. And auto sum can do a few different things for you. So let's say you just want to know from this, you want to know what the maximum or what your biggest sale was or something like that. You could do max, and it will find out which one of these was the highest, which was this one. You can always go back and change them by clicking on it and then just redoing it. So right now that's the sum of all of these. And then if we wanted to figure out what our total was, total profit-wise, we could do that down here. So this is just calculating how much all of these were added together. So let's say that if I we made a mistake on Monday through Wednesday, and I wanted to re-enter those. If you highlight them all and just hit the backspace, it only does the first one you selected. So in that case, you would have to go through and select each one manually. But if you highlight them and hit the delete button, it gets rid of them all. And then you can re-enter them however you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that so I don't have to do that. What else do I have for you guys? Another way to do it is, let's say that we had just some numbers here. I don't know why that's doing that here. There we go. If I have this one highlighted, and then we go to the formulas again and just click auto sum, it tries to predict what will happen or what you kind of want it to do. It does all the hard work for you. So that way it does that. So one of the examples that I was shown today is, let's say that I have a number here, a number here, and two numbers here as well. So if I click here and then click auto sum, which one will it do? Because we've seen it predict both. We've seen it predict both, where it could add these two numbers up, or it could add these two numbers up. And I believe it does always what's above it first, but just be mindful of that. So let's say we wanted to go back to this, and right now it is selecting those. We could change it by clicking and dragging to make sure that it does those ones. What other things could we show you? So I should probably go over all the things in the home page that you guys will most likely be using most of all. This is obviously the font thing. If you click and drag, and then you can see what the change will be. So I'm just going to change it to this. You can make all of these bolded. And then these ones align it. So if you want everything to go to the left of its box, you can change it so it goes to the left of its box. That changes the font. So now you can see that all of those are going left to right. Numbers almost always stay to the right of their box. It's just the way Excel likes it for whatever reason. You can also change how big the font is through this. It's the same as using it in the box. What this box does is you can change what border there is on it. So let's say you wanted to really highlight Monday through Thursday for whatever reason. You could select whatever one of these borders that are in here, and then there will be a border around it wherever you select it. So you could just choose for it to be underneath it, to the side of it, whatever you want. What else? Let's say you had like a title up here, so I'm going to go ahead and move some of this. I'm going to move some of this down. It's going to overlap with this 50% and the big number that I have there. It's going to tell me, hey, you have something there. I want it to replace it, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now let's say I wanted to have a title up here. Now it kind of goes into this next cell. If you really wanted to, you could select all three cells and click this merge in center. Basically what it does is makes these three cells all one cell, and then makes it so that way the text is in the center of it. It also works if you wanted to do multiple down and across. So now this doesn't have the grid lines going across it. What else do I got? Do you guys have any questions?
Not at the minute.
Mainly the thing that will help is just playing around with it. Just open up a new Excel and just putz around with it. Enter in random numbers, make random formulas, kind of what I've been doing here. That's kind of what I've been doing all day to try to make sure I know what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah, and I think you'll find there's multiple ways to do the same thing with a
yes,
lot of this.
yes, that is for sure. One way I teach it might be different from the way somebody else teaches it, and as I said earlier, everybody uses Excel a different way. So some people need it for this accounting stuff and really make a lot of use of these formulas, while other people might not be, they might do something completely different. Um, One thing that some people do is that you can highlight this entire upper row and then you can basically freeze it. So that way when you scroll down, it still shows it. It's just however you need to use it. So if you guys have any questions on, hey, I really want to be able to do this, let me know and I'll try to either figure it out or tell you how to do that. It's hard
Or
to
look at
do.
YouTube.
What was that?
Or I'm telling them guys to look on YouTube because you can really learn a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm using a resource that I have through school that Stout paid for every single student. But yes, YouTube is a very good resource. If you don't have the patience for that, have me do it, and I'll YouTube it for you. Um, yeah, I know I went over everything very quickly, and if you want me to go over anything again, I definitely can for you. Um, I don't. That's pretty much all I have for you today. Um, and I actually talked for way longer than I thought I did, honestly. Um, but yeah, is there any other
I
general
think
questions there? I know I went over that fast.
I think we all need to determine what specifically we are going to use this for the most. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Um, but like Vincent was telling me that he didn't really know what anything was, and hopefully I didn't bombard him with too many, just so much info at one time. Um, it's definitely there's a learning curve to this. Once you kind of get used to mainly the formula bar can be kind of confusing. Once you get that, everything seems a bit easier.
Once I find a use for it,
Oh,
I'll figure it out.
yeah,
I'll have to
exactly. That's that's the
figure
thing
something out and I
also.
want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing I'm having troubles with is I don't know what to teach you guys because I don't know exactly what you guys all do on Excel. So,
Right. Once I figure that out, then I'll have more specific questions.
exactly.
That's your assignment for tomorrow, Vince.
Say what?
I said that's Vince's assignment for tomorrow.
How about we have that be
I'm gonna
everyone's
prepare a spreadsheet my time off.
we can have that be everyone's assignment for tomorrow, quote unquotes on that. Come up with something for me to show you, I guess. We don't have to do it tomorrow. I pretty much went over everything. But if you guys want to come up with something for me to show you guys, or come up with some sort of question, email it to me either tonight or tomorrow, and I'll show you guys how to do it tomorrow.
Compound interest.
Compound interest? Actually, there's a function for that.
Yes, there is, I know. Vince, you'd really like this stuff for what this thing can do.
I pay cash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
sounds good. If there's any questions for me, just feel free to Skype or email me, and I'll come help you.
All right,
Okay,
thanks,
sounds good.
Kyle.
All right, have a good one, you guys.
You'll see it.